The beating took place right in the washroom, in the toilet. They drowned, beat, and that's it. These were, well, regular procedures.
On September 29th, a Ukrainian FPV drone destroyed a Russian Mi-8 transport helicopter, hitting the cockpit with the troops. As a result of the attack, the fuel caught fire, and almost all the personnel were burned to death on board. Details of the losses were provided by Russian military blogger Alexei Voevoda, who knew the pilot of the helicopter. According to him, the helicopter was flying at a low speed, which allowed the Ukrainian drone to hit the target accurately. The FPV drone hit directly into the cockpit with the troops, Voevoda said. He added that the helicopter was engulfed in flames after the impact. Despite the critical situation, the young crew commander successfully made an emergency landing in the burning vehicle. However, only 2 crew members, a flight engineer and a navigator, managed to survive. The commander and the rest of the crew were unable to get out and were burned to death. The operation to destroy the helicopter was carried out by a unit of unmanned systems, known as the Predators of the Heights of the 59th Separate Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The helicopter was struck by a 10-inch Shrike 10 FPV drone equipped with a PG-7M warhead, a high-precision drone model designed to target armored and airborne vehicles. The operation was supported by reconnaissance drones, which provided target detection and navigation for the attack drone. The unit that carried out the operation informed Militarny that the FP-5 drone was operated by one of the brigade's most experienced operators, who went by the call sign Baltika. The FPV pilot performed maneuvers in first-person mode at an ultra-low altitude, which allowed him to accurately hit the vulnerable part of the helicopter. This approach increases the chances of successful engagement of even moving air targets. This case illustrates the increasing effectiveness and role of small attack drones in modern warfare, particularly in targeting enemy aircraft. Such episodes are recorded not only in Ukraine. For example, in Myanmar, the rebels also reported the downing of a Mi-17 helicopter by an FP-5 drone. Russian prisoners of war released by Ukraine are treated like cattle, put in chains by the Russian army and sent back to the front line to fight, regardless of sickness or injuries. This practice is expressly prohibited by the Geneva Conventions. There have been persistent reports for some time that Russian POWs are being systematically abused on their return to Russia, with interrogations, beatings, and even executions. An investigation by Radio Svoboda has identified more details. Junior Sergeant Ivan Grebennikov was one of 1,000 Russians swapped for 1,000 Ukrainians in May 2025. He spent 10 months in Ukrainian captivity. He sustained serious injuries before being captured, like most of the other POWs released in the swap. Despite their wounds and long captivities, none of the POWs were allowed to go home, seek medical assistance, or get a medical review. They were almost all put in chains and transported back to deployment points in Ukraine. Only the most seriously injured were left unchained. Valerie, a soldier from the same unit, says that they loaded us all onto buses. The lightly wounded were handcuffed, the disabled were thrown in and taken to the Donetsk front. No, they won't leave us in the rear. They'll take us to the front line. We'll die there, of course. Grebennikov's father says that the army sent them back like cattle, although none of them want to fight. It's not that they don't ask questions. Many are ready to flee. They're transported in shackles. Grebennikov himself says in a video that they don't conduct a VVK, military medical commission, no medical examination at all. I have a bullet in my body. My arm is broken. They won't let me go home. Even though he had been given a Category D, unfit for service, medical rating, they brazenly changed our categories for false ones. For example, they changed my D to B, fit for service with minor restrictions. Even though my right arm is still broken in several places, I still have a bullet in my body. I haven't even had surgery. And there are a lot of us like that, on crutches, in casts. They just don't care. They're transporting cripples to the Donetsk front. Despite the POWs all writing letters of refusals to go back to the front line, their appeals have been ignored by the Russian Ministry of Defense. Grebenikov's relative Natalia says, "The Ministry of Defense is a black hole. They don't respond at all." The prosecutor's office just sent a formal reply saying they're supposedly doing everything legally with Ivan. How can they legally send a wounded soldier back to the front lines after being captured, without rehabilitation or even treatment, without consent? What kind of fight will he have without his right hand? He can't even hold a rifle, drive a car, or even pull out a wounded comrade. I just don't understand why they need an entire company. And they're transporting other wounded soldiers with Ivan, of disabled soldiers at the front, just for show? Who are they supposed to show them off to? They'll finish them all off in the next shelling. Who needs their deaths? Russia has created entire crippled battalions of wounded men who are used for frontline tasks, including carrying out assaults. Article 117 of the 1949 Third Geneva Convention prohibits the retention of prisoners of war in military service after their return. However, in this, as in so much else, the Russian military is ignoring the laws of war. From a penal colony in Russia, prisoners were sent straight to the war in Ukraine. The Kupiansk direction has become a disposal zone for Russia's manpower. Russian prisons are now empty. The administration forces inmates to sign contracts through pressure, beatings, and torture. For the system, they are not people. They are cannon fodder.
The beating took place right in the washroom, in the toilet. They drowned, beat, and that's it. These were, well, regular procedures. You write that you are a faggot there. Well, you write everything about yourself, you sign a contract, and that's it, and they didn't touch you anymore. And they took us directly to Ukraine. An FPV drone crashes into me, well, into my legs. Then a second FPV drone also from the left. When the witch already hit me, I just went further into the forest on autopilot. About 2 days later, I came to my senses. Well, worms were crawling on me, all that.
Tell me, how did you end up in the army?
From IK4 in the city of Vyazniki from the prison.
Ukroboronprom released specs for the Neptune D cruise missile and Luty strike drone. Neptune carries a 260-kilogram warhead, range up to 1,000 kilometers, for sea and land targets. Luty ceiling 4,300 meters, range 1,300 kilometers, speed approximately 160 kilometers per hour. Neptune was used to strike the Elektrodetol plant in Bryansk. The Wall Street Journal says Ukraine lacks funds for mass production of its missiles. Wall Street Journal writes that Ukraine lacks funds for mass production of its own missiles, including the ballistic missile project. The report notes Kyiv has the capability but not the resources, and argues the Flamingo would not dramatically change the course of the war. Russia again targeted civilian infrastructure deliberately. Russia struck Kharkiv's Barabashovo market again. At least 100 trade pavilions were destroyed by fire and another 100 damaged. Russian forces continue their terroristic attacks on Ukrainian civilians, striking residential areas, markets, and public infrastructure with missiles and drones. These assaults aim to spread fear and cause maximum suffering among the population, often far from the front lines. Despite international condemnation, Moscow persists in targeting civilians, leaving behind casualties, destroyed homes, and shattered communities.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.